I read about 2,620,000 words in 2021. June was the biggest month for reading for me, and that was all from a single book with 320,000 words, A Clash of Kings. And A Storm of Swords is 100,000 words longer than that one, and this is the year I'll read that. Pray for me. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. 2021 has come and gone, leaving us with memories, both good and bad, but I hope your year turned out great and that 2022 proves to be even better. And I hope you guys are able to read some books or watch those films and shows that bring you joy. As for myself, I was able to get through 18 novels, not including novellas or graphic novels or children's books, and I'm extremely proud of that. I have never read more than I did in 2021, and I am aiming even higher for this year. Today I plan to go through the 10 novels that I read in the second half of the year, giving you my brief thoughts on them and ranking them via a tier list. This is a part 2 to a video I did back in July, so if you'd like to hear my thoughts on those books, you can go check that out by clicking the link somewhere up there. I did read some big ones like Lord of the Rings, Mistborn, and A Clash of Kings, so if you are interested, do be sure to check that out. But as for today, I will be covering the books that I read from July through December. Kicking off today's list with the C tier, I have The Sea of Monsters, the second book in the Percy Jackson series, coming in above Something from the Night Side. I can't say that The Sea of Monsters does anything inherently bad, but it's hard to say that it does anything spectacular either that would push it above the average tier. It's the shortest book in this series and really serves as a bridge story from the Lightning Thief to the Titan's Curse, bringing back the major character of Thalia, daughter of Zeus. It does a good job at expanding the world and further developing the mythologies at play, but it really is an average read, even when considering that it is a young adult fantasy. Moving on to the B tier, I have the only horror I read last year, the well-known and well-praised horror classic, The Haunting of Hellhouse. I did put out a 2-minute book review for this one for any people who are curious whether this book is worth the read, but in short, if you are looking to have a better understanding or broader scope of the influences at play within the horror genre, there is no better book to pick up than The Haunting of Hellhouse. Most, if not all, horror writers today credit this as being one of those books that inspired them early on in their career. Stephen King himself says that this is the best ghost story ever written, and while I can't 100% agree, I can definitely see why people would give it such praise. The terrifying atmosphere that Shirley Jackson creates here is breathtaking, and the characters are just as unreliable as the house, which only adds to the suspense. It does read very differently in today's age, and while it isn't to my specific taste, it definitely deserves the title of classic. But coming in just above it, I have the first book of the Percy Jackson series, The Lightning Thief. Now, obviously, it's impossible to say that The Lightning Thief is better objectively than any classic piece of literature like Hill House, but in terms of overall enjoyment and just being memorable, I do have it a wee bit higher. It is a great start to a series and introduction to the world in which the Greek gods are a part of. Seeing Percy being introduced to this world and having to dive in and save it right off the bat is an incredibly fun journey and makes for a great story. It's definitely a book that I would recommend to kids who aren't crazy about reading but would like to be, and while it is young adult fantasy and it can be very childish at times, it also feels like a book that everyone should read at least once in their lifetime. But moving on to a more mature story, or collection of stories I should say, is The Last Wish, which introduces the Witcher, Geralt of Rivia. I have put out a 2-minute book review for this one as well, so if you'd like to hear my thoughts on it, you can go and check it out. But in essence, I found this to be quite an enjoyable introduction to Geralt and the world he traverses. This book dives into a very unique set of moral questions, which helps Sapkowski push the envelope of the fantasy genre. Is there such a thing as a lesser evil? Can anyone be bought for a certain price? Can such vastly different people ever truly coexist?
Wow, that's deep. real indeed.
This book tackles these questions in daring ways, utilizing Geralt's stoic but precise character. Being an anthology, this book wasn't able to do anything too crazy that really excited me, but that said, I am looking forward to the next one. Moving up the B tier and past Daniel Green's Breach of Peace, I have the third and newest book in Brandon Sanderson's Cytoverse series, Cytonic. This was a bit of a letdown in regard to what I've come to expect from not only Brandon, but the Skyward series thus far. However, this was still a very enjoyable ride that offers more time with Spensa, a character I've come to really love, as well as new and returning characters from the series that make for great dynamics within the story. Brandon is the king of epic moments and reveals, and I would say that this one probably has the greatest single reveal within this series, although it does require a huge disbelief even for a sci-fi series. Let's be honest, this is just straight up fantasy sci-fi at this point. But coming in ahead of The Two Towers and The Hobbit, and topping off the B tier, I have the first book in the Wheel of Time, Robert Jordan's The Eye of the World. What can I say? I just enjoyed The Two Rivers a bit more than The Two Towers.
That's awful.
The adventure here is phenomenal. It's familiar and nostalgic, touching on those beats that The Lord of the Rings first established, but then quickly evolves into something new with a new cast of characters that actually jump off the page and feel lively and vibrant. You feel for Rand and his denial of identity and are as awestruck by the vast world that he and his friends are introduced to. There are many lulls along the way, as well as convenient plot points, and the ending does feel like it kind of comes out of nowhere, but the journey is fun and the characters are relatable and well executed, and it does a great job at setting up one of the longest and biggest fantasy tales to date. Compared to The Two Towers, the action here is underwhelming, but the overall pacing of the story makes it a more enjoyable read. Kicking off the A tier is the second book in Brandon Sanderson's Cytoverse, Starsight. After the events of Skyward, Starsight plunges Spensa into a bigger and broader world where she must learn the ways of a spy as someone who is trained to be a starfighting warrior, in the hopes of learning the secrets of the superiority and freeing her homeworld from their oppression. This book makes the bold choice to introduce a completely new cast of characters after making us fall in love with the original cast, but Sanderson does it again, providing bigger stakes, bigger fights, and bigger questions. If you want to know if Skyward is a series for you, I do have spoiler-free reviews for all 3 currently released books, and I plan on doing a ranking video for the series, including the 3 novellas. I'll be talking about everything from the cover art to the characters, so be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. But moving on up, I have a very different book on this list. Mitch Albom's newest release, The Stranger in the Lifeboat. Albom was my favorite author for quite some time, well before I ever discovered Sanderson. Tuesdays with Morrie and The 5 People You Meet in Heaven had huge influences on me. He has the wonderful ability to make you cry and really think with a clever story that is both philosophical and religious without coming off as preachy or too in your face. I am a Christian myself and can always appreciate a well-constructed story that pushes me to be better, and Albom never misses. The Stranger in the Lifeboat is a wonderful plunge into the question of, if God ever answered our prayers, would we even notice? It's a great story that diverts expectations very well, and is now one of the few books I've read within a single day. But moving past the Fellowship of the Ring and Full Moon, my runner-up for the second half of 2021 is none other than The Return of the King. I wrestled with this one quite a bit in regards to its placement around Fellowship, but for me, the multitude of intense battles, the character work, the commentary on industrialism, and the huge ending for this trilogy all came together so well for me that I think it deserves a spot above Fellowship. I'm proud that I was able to read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings within a single year, and I feel like I can move forward now with a newfound respect and understanding for the origins of modern fantasy. Tolkien's stamp on the genre is unmistakable, and overall I think this series stands up today and will serve as a remarkable piece of literature for many generations to come. It is slow at times, it has flowery writing, and the characters are not as dynamic as they could have been. But there is no doubt in my mind that this is worthy of the title of classic. But lastly, coming in above it, but still below Mistborn, the Final Empire, and A Clash of Kings, is Book 2 of the Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt. This was such a solid entry in the series and a sizable step up from The Eye of the World. There were much less lulls in the pacing, and the character work is phenomenal here, making you care about every single Edmundsfielder and the journey ahead of them. There are still flaws like convenient devices within the world, lower scale house politics that don't really draw you in, and a somewhat repetitive ending, but overall the story is engaging and really makes you care about the characters at play. I have full reviews for the first 2 books as well as an episode ranking for Amazon's adaptation, so if you'd like to check those out, you can click this playlist right up here. But as for this video, this is my final tier list ranking. It pains me to have only 1 book in the S tier, but this is what I read, and I try to reserve the S tier for books that I felt went above and beyond my expectations, and Mistborn was that book this year. I was constantly texting my friends my progress with the book as well as my newest theories and speculations, and even though I did call the big twist reveal ending, it took nothing away from the book for me. Sanderson really shows his mastering of the craft within this book, and because of that, I've decided that the first books I'm going to read for 2022 are books 2 and 3 of the first trilogy of Mistborn.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
He is currently in revision for book 4 within Era 2, so depending on how quickly I get through this first trilogy and how much I like it, I might just blow through those and read book 4 when it releases. But if you're interested in the rest of my reading plans for 2022, I did post my TBR on Instagram, which you can check out by clicking the link in the description below. I'm aiming to focus more on independent books, but I also want to get through more books of Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire and The Wheel of Time. Let me know what you guys plan on reading in the comments below, and feel free to read along with me. It's always more fun to read with friends. But as for now, that's it from me. Thank you so much for tuning in and talking books with me. I'll meet you guys in the comments section where we can talk about them some more. But until then, I will see you all next time.